Sooner or later it happens. Your child corners you and asks the question, "Mom, where do babies come from?" Are you ready for it? How much do young kids need to know about the birds and the bees when they're 4 or 5, when they're 10 and older? I'm Dr. Logan Levkoff, and I'm here to give you the 411 on how to tackle the talk on this episode of Mom Ed in the Bedroom. Hi, and thanks for joining me. As a sex educator, I am passionate about making sure kids get their facts straight. We owe it to our children to give them the best information possible. But as a parent, I know how difficult and confusing it is to begin those conversations. It's why I wrote Third Base Ain't What It Used to Be. Joining me today are Sandra, mother of 6-year-old daughter Izzy, and Margaret, who is a 14-year-old daughter. How comfortable are you guys talking about issues of sex and sexuality with your kids?
Well, with my daughter, who is 6, it's very innocent still in a lot of ways. You know, it's where do babies come from, or so it's just kind of facts, so it's easier because there's really not emotional stuff in there, but for me, it's fine, it's okay.
It's completely normal for 5- and 6-year-olds to ask questions about where babies come from and how does sperm and egg meet. I always advise to ask your child first, what are you really asking? What do you want to know? Where did you hear this from? Get some context, which will really help you. But the truth is, our kids are far more capable of hearing information about sex and sexuality than we typically give them credit for. And you answer them in really simple terms, 2 sentences here and there, and then you check back in with them. And if they ask what ingredients make a baby, you say it pretty simply, sperm and egg. Men have sperm, women have egg. And then eventually, when they ask more questions, you can go into depth on how those two meet. Recently, I was surrounded by condoms in my living room, which is a typical occurrence when you're prepping for a high school sex ed class. My 7-year-old came up to me and said, "Mom, what are those?" So I answered, "Those are condoms." He looked at me funny. I said, "Honey, do you remember how sperm and eggs sometimes meet?" He answered, "Yes. A man puts his penis into a woman's vulva and vagina." He was right. So I said, well, condoms are something that people wear if they don't want to become pregnant or they don't want to pass germs from one person to another. So they're health products. He looked at me and said, "Condoms are health products." And he was okay with that. Margaret, how comfortable are you with having these conversations?
You know, I'm comfortable, but my daughter is like so not interested in anything I have to say. She rolls her eyes and she says, "I'm good." And I'm like, okay.
So she shuts the door on you.
She does.
No more conversation.
Yes.
In my experience, our kids really want information from us, but they do reach that point where they're slightly embarrassed to have those conversations. I like to acknowledge the embarrassment a little and to be able to say, you know what, this makes me uncomfortable too, but I want to have these conversations with you. I want you to get the information from me, so just know we'll have this conversation, and you can pretend to hold your ears, but know that I'm always here to listen to you. Sandra, any questions that you have that you feel like you have a hard time tackling?
I think what's hard for me is that now that my daughter is the age she is, she's in a school with older grades, so it's not just preschool with little ones. So she's saying what older kids are saying, and I want to try to address it appropriately with her, but also not go too far ahead that she gets confused or gets ashamed or gets embarrassed. That's the last thing I want. So.
And that's the best point, that we give our kids a little bit of information at a time and see what they can handle. And it is our job also to make sure our kids always feel good about their bodies and know that beauty doesn't equal sexy, and sexy is not a word that describes children. We asked our CafeMom community what are the common questions that they have about broaching these conversations at home. And this is what they said, and I want you guys to weigh in on this with me. "I think it's cute to let my son call his penis a winky. My husband disagrees. Who's right?" Margaret, what do you think? Is it okay?
Because I don't have a son, but I think it could be playful for him to say that, but he should know the proper name.
I have to say, I am a stickler when it comes to anatomy. I really feel like it's important that we call our parts by their rightful names. We don't have to infantilize them. They're important parts. And also, when we don't have a universal language for talking about our bodies, how do we know when something feels good, or how do we know if we're injured? And how do we talk about good touch and bad touch if we don't know what our kids are talking about. Another question we got, I caught my 5-year-old daughter and her friend playing doctor. I immediately broke it up. Was that the right thing to do? Playing doctor, which is something that's very common, doctor, playing parent-child, baby, to break up or not to break up. What do you think?
That's a toughie. I think it's pretty normal as long as they're not doing anything that doesn't seem okay to explore with them, I would think.
And it's also a great time to talk about the fact that our bodies are our own and just for us, and not everyone is comfortable with us touching their body. And permission is always a good thing, but not to make it about shame and to be able to say every family is different, but it's okay to be curious.
So my parents never actually had the sex talk with me, and I felt like as a child I was the one being a little more proactive. And so as a parent now, I really want to share with my daughter because I wanted more information, and she just is not interested. So do you have any tips on how I could really continue sharing more with her?
Share your own stories with her. Share the story that your parents never spoke to you about and that you want to be a different kind of parent. Because the truth is, parents play a huge role in how our kids understand sex and sexuality and the decisions that we make. And this isn't just about one talk. This is about having lots of conversations about lots of different subjects. Sex, sexuality, relationships, even friendships. It's all part of the conversation. Sandra, Margaret, thank you so much for being here with me today and shedding light on this very important subject. And now I want to hear from all of you. How have you handled the talk, or lots of talks about the birds and the bees? Leave a comment, and don't forget, subscribe to CafeMom Studios on YouTube so that you don't miss a single episode of Mom Ed in the Bedroom.